But for the last 5 years, if you consider it, most of the major internet and software paradigms have come from student projects or kids just solving problems in their bedrooms. If you look at all of the major brands that exist on the internet, it's typically an idea that's come from a thinker like that, as opposed to a bunch of management consultants in a room with a whiteboard. So with that as a background, there's a need to give them the tools and they will come. These innovators are really professional developers. If you provide them with the plumbing and the heavy lifting, allow them to be creative, then you get a result. And the challenge then becomes, how do you solve mutual ambitions? For us, it's probably around revenue and profit and share. For them, it's something different. It's very often notoriety, admiration of their peers, homage, things, girls, whatever. So it's a matter of actually finding what it is and ensure that those two ambitions collide. But beware of fashion. This is a bit like my embarrassment to see my dad dancing at a wedding reception. You've got to be careful not to be too fashionable yourself, but understand the fashion that drives these people. The web audience itself is massively fashion sensitive. They will abandon the service as quickly as it arrived if something cooler comes along. And that's been very much the case if you look at social networking. Friends Reunited, probably a great innovator in this space, is now fairly far down the league table with places like Facebook at the top. And also, I suppose, whilst not trying to be fashionable, it's a matter of not trying to be seen too much as what these innovators call a suit. It's trying to find that balance so that you can have a dialogue with them. And hard infrastructure is not a ticket to play. Now, this is very much something that the telco guys I wanted to get across. If they're in the plumbing game, you've got to be ready to lose share to the upstart. Companies with a heritage of plumbing and hard infrastructure have to change their mindset. It might be their core business, but it ends up being irrelevant. These people just want to get something done. If you introduce friction into that process of achieving that, then you're going to lose out. So therefore, big one here, innovate or be irrelevant. You might be a dominant player today, but don't use that as a reason to lean back. There's a film that was out, I think, in the late 70s with Tom Hanks called Big, and it was about this 30-year-old who had a mind of a 12-year-old and became the best researcher for toys in this particular toy company. And it's about the ability of being able to put yourself into the mind of the customer. And a comment that you just made about beta, which I've got down here, beta is good. Beta will get early adopters and create a scarcity value. And Google does a great job at making their Gmail beta still. But in the early days, it was all about Gmail logins going on eBay for $200 or $300. That scarcity value is very powerful. And finally on this, is perfectly unpolished is not as valuable as it used to be. YouTube has defined a whole new level of video watching experience way down here. And so the ability to actually be able to get things out with not necessarily having the polish is really there now. And doing a great example is Prada. They sell jeans with holes in. Those jeans cost $500 or $600 a pop. So there's definitely this idea it doesn't have to be perfect anymore. And finally, for this, in my ideas, is about go big or go home. And what I mean by this is it needs to be geo-scale, it needs to be highly available, it needs to be lightning fast, but it must be architected for the thinnest pipe you're going to sell to. So if you consider India and China, the two biggest consuming markets in the world, but if you look at the kind of bandwidth per capita there, it's tiny. So when you build these applications, you've got to really understand how they're going to be consumed.